Chapter 1. Bonus Hidden Ending. Bonus Hidden Ending. Hidden Class Unlocked. A dry system message on the monitor. Whoa, it worked. A hidden class, you did it, Kim Shinhwa. The game was called Cthulhu World. He dumped over 1,000 hours into it recently. It brought Cthulhu mythology, the whole atmosphere of At the Mountains of Madness, Dagon, and Nyarlathotep, into a modern South Korean setting. That's why everything in this game was way harsher and more horrifying than reality. Human civilization here was just a sandcastle, ready to crumble at any moment before cosmic evil. The weak minds and frail bodies of humans became food for surreal entities from other worlds, and knowledge and wisdom turned into a curse that accelerated their doom. Corrupted religion praised abhorrent wisdom. Blind science studied forbidden knowledge. The only weapon given to humanity was a veil called ignorance, and even that was too thin and pathetic to stop indescribably colossal beings. So, sounds intriguing, right? Whatever others thought, for him personally, it was a masterpiece. That specific setting and atmosphere hit him right in the heart. He was a horror fan. But the fun didn't end there. As befitting a game aiming for cosmic horror, it was truly, genuinely, devilishly difficult. Hellish difficulty, deadly traps, ridiculously strong bosses, the kind where you wondered if the devs even intended them to be beatable, and named NPCs who'd hunt the player down. Of course, for a hardcore gamer like him, who played everything out there, this was just a challenge that fueled his excitement. And so, once again, he'd cleared a damn difficult hidden ending, and as a reward, he got this class. But there's no one to even brag to. It's so sad it makes me cry. With a faint hope for a miracle, he went to the game's forum. For the past year, every single post there had been written by him. The view count under each one was telling. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Back in the day, there was at least some information sharing, but now the community had completely died out. Yeah, the game had flopped. The game was dead. No arguing with that. The radical setting, dark atmosphere, and teeth-grinding difficulty. Yeah, those were niche things, but the project failed not because of them. The game died because of bugs. There were way too many of them. Getting stuck in textures or falling through walls. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Who'd want to play when the client constantly crashed and a lovingly leveled character could just disappear? And everywhere, there were ridiculous traces of unfinished work. A prime example was the ancient Tome of Lacrex, an item that always dropped with every playthrough. In Cthulhu myths, grimoires like that usually contained supernatural wisdom or drove you insane. If an item had no special properties, it should at least trigger some kind of event. But the Tome of Lacrex, appearing with pompous special effects, was completely empty. And no events were tied to it. He even thought Lacrex might be a name or a place, but no such word existed in the entire Cthulhu world. What else could it be but a half-abandoned idea from the devs that they'd conveniently forgotten? Because of all this, players abandoned the project. He was probably the only one who'd gotten this far. No, I'm definitely the only one. If there was anyone else, at least one post by someone else would appear on the forum. Did no one else like Cthulhu and cosmic horror? With such fragile minds, how could anyone save the world from mythical gods? Anyway, if you could endure the initial inconvenience and absurd difficulty, the game was pretty decent. Unfortunately, he'd adapted to the abundance of bugs surprisingly fast. If you treated every janky mechanic with an, this is just a hidden feature attitude, you eventually reached enlightenment and started using bugs to your advantage. Some absurd glitches really helped with progression. I probably shouldn't have gotten so used to this dumpster fire. Whatever. Who cared whether anyone else knew about it or not? What mattered more was protecting the world from the horrifying Cthulhu. Anyway, character unlock this time, huh? The world of Cthulhu had hundreds of possible endings. Watching the story develop differently depending on the chosen route was fun in itself, but each new ending also gave a small reward or unlocked hidden content. If the game was dead, Could it at least not be this interesting? It was exactly because of these various rewards and secrets that he could spend so much time on it without getting the slightest bit bored. Now that I've got it, maybe I'll play as him. I was thinking of playing a mage next time anyway. Since it's a hidden class, there must be some cool options, right? The gameplay experience changed drastically depending on the build. His previous character was a martial artist who could transform into a beast. Under buffs, even bullets couldn't pierce his body, and his monstrous strength let him throw boulders. He didn't have a drop of magic, but blasting his way through any obstacle with just his fists was incredibly fun. Now he'd create a mage, the complete opposite, and with the enticing hidden tag. He clicked the new game button on the title screen and opened the character creation window. Abyss-gazing mage, a mad mage who studies the abyss, forbidden to humans. The abyss itself is a living monster. You will be able to use sinister magic that can destroy even your own sanity, but your soul, overflowing with madness and chaos, will become the perfect feast for abyssal entities. Unique traits: shattered mind, abyssal madness, sacrifice for the feast, ultimate stat adjustment, abyssal magic, madman's luck, mana devourer, spell mastery, spell enhancement, deadly poison. Shattered mind: you gain 2 random madnesses. If for any reason one of them disappears, you gain a new one. The confusion caused by these madnesses cannot be prevented. The price for gazing into the abyss is eternal, indelible insanity. Abyssal madness: you do not lose sanity when encountering monsters or mythical beings, when using magic, or when reading mythical tomes. You gain maximum resistance to fear and confusion effects. Your mind will never collapse because you're already insane. Sacrifice for the feast: increased chance to encounter abyssal entities. The rest of the skills you can just skim, right? The most important thing is the stat adjustment trait that sometimes appears for hidden characters. Ultimate stat adjustment: when creating a character, you can adjust your stats without any restrictions. What? No restrictions? Seriously? No way? A character with this trait allows the player to redistribute base stats however they want, but of course not completely chaotically. There are penalties and limits. First, the penalty: to raise one stat, you have to sacrifice another. Second, limits. Each class has its own stat cap and floor. For example, you can't have an attribute above 20 or below 8. But this says no restrictions? First, let's look at the base. Strength: 8 constitution, 10, agility, 11, intelligence, 18, spirit, 14, charisma, 16, free stat points, 0. The base stats and trait set: a typical glass cannon. Such a character is physically weak, but wields devastating magic unavailable to others. As I said, you usually can't drop a stat below 8. But this guy has no restrictions, so... Strength: 5 constitution, 5 agility, 7 intelligence, 16 spirit, 14 charisma, 16 free stat points, 14. Nice, is that the maximum I can cut? He got 14 free points. With them, he could raise what he needed. And he needed only one thing: intelligence. Intelligence is the core of any mage, the most important parameter directly tied to magical power. At intelligence 18, the description said genius. At 20, superhuman. His previous martial artist had strength 20, superhuman. That was enough to throw boulders and bend steel beams. And the mage he was creating now: strength 5 constitution, 5 agility, 8 intelligence, 29 spirit, 14 charisma, 16 free stat points, 0 at intelligence. 29, the description read, surreal. Just as he was about to hit the confirm button, a thoughtful whistle escaped his lips. Surreal intelligence. Sounds cool, really cool. But 29 is such an ugly number. A huge number, but it felt like something was missing. Like drawing a perfect circle, but your hand twitched at the very end. Since he'd come this far, he wanted to push it to a nice round 30. Intelligence 30, something completely unimaginable, a number he'd never even dreamed of during his entire time playing Cthulhu World. But he couldn't cut the other stats any further. They might seem like random choices, but each number had its justification. Charisma isn't just about having a pretty face. It's the minimum needed to negotiate with mythical creatures and gain favour with supernatural entities. It would be great to have off-the-charts charisma, but he could pick up a few points from artifacts during gameplay. So, charisma 16, attractiveness. He couldn't touch it. Agility 8 was also the minimum, calculated with future buffs and gear in mind. Drop it lower, and he'd die before finding what he needed. The same went for spirit and constitution. His gaze caught a tooltip that appeared. Strength, weakness. A mage doesn't need strength anyway, right? In the end, he clicked the minus button next to strength once more. Oh great Cthulhu, oh Yog-Sothoth, I sacrifice my body. Grant me more intelligence. Strength, 4 constitution, 5 agility, 8 intelligence, 30, spirit 14, charisma 16 free stat points, 0. As soon as strength dropped to 4, the description changed too. Strength 4, sickliness. But that's fine, just look at that intelligence. Intelligence 30. People, look. He created a character with 30 intelligence. Ah, damn. The forum was still dead. Meanwhile, in the detailed description window for intelligence, a phrase appeared that he'd never seen before. Intelligence 30. Mythical. You possess knowledge inaccessible to humans and wisdom bordering on insanity. Huh? What's this? First time seeing such a message. Could this be it? A hidden trigger? His heart pounded with joy at the thought that he'd stumbled upon another secret. Yeah, only with such a degree of madness can you call yourself a truly insane mage. Actually, for survival, it's far more useful to create balanced characters rather than such lopsided freaks. But today, the concept was extreme madness. If the build turned out unplayable, he'd just delete the character and start over. Next, traits. The abyss-gazing mage already had more than others, but just like with stats, he could take additional negative perks to use the points on useful skills. Since he'd already sacrificed strength, he decided to throw in the most radical penalties. Reduced stamina, reduced strength, reduced health, weakness in melee, increased damage taken, vulnerability to diseases, inability to use heavy weapons, increased injury chance, vulnerability to poisons. In exchange for all these debuffs, he could pick up a bunch of useful magic properties. This class came with Spell Mastery for free. Excellent choice. Normally unlocking Spell Mastery cost a ton of points and had incredibly convoluted prerequisites. This trait allowed using basic spells of the available rank without a separate learning process. Without it, it often happened that you created a mage but couldn't cast anything because you simply didn't know any spells. The fact that this top-tier skill was free made the Abyss-Gazing Mage an amazing class. So he added Understanding of Arcane Lore, Spell Enhancement Maximize, Spell Enhancement Power, Spell Enhancement Range, Quick Cast, Double Reading, Skip Gestures, Catalyst Substitution, and Spell Thief. And even though they weren't magic skills, they're always useful. Precise aim and alertness. Points left? Then he replaced alertness with improved alertness. Packing a total of 11 penalties into his build, he got 11 powerful perks in return. In the end, he created the ultimate mage, steeped in the darkness of Cthulhu myths, surpassing all his previous characters. Of course, he had to literally sacrifice his health for it, but it fit the concept so perfectly that he was thrilled. Okay, setup complete. Magic, I'm counting only on you. The moment he clicked the Start Game button, the mouse cursor disappeared and the monitor went black. The computer showed no signs of life. Oh, come on, another bug. The black screen suddenly started flickering strangely. A unique introductory cutscene for the character? No way. The screen's matrix itself began to warp and melt bizarrely. A horizontal crack ran across the center of the monitor, and it opened up. What burst open before him, like the maw of a wild beast, no longer belonged to any reality he knew. It was a primordial, pulsating darkness, like a murky swamp. It was an abhorrent filth, full of nauseating impurities. It was a rotting chaos, grotesque, distorted remains of a broken reality, and fragments of nightmares that should never be recalled. It was the greedy maw of the abyss. From the stinking pit, an ominously pulsating black sludge gushed out. Fragments of a monstrous entity, writhing as if alive. His body went numb. His tongue and lips wouldn't obey. He had a mouth, but he couldn't scream. He had arms and legs, but he couldn't move. Monstrous evil was approaching him relentlessly, but he couldn't escape. The cold, abhorrent sludge, moving in an incomprehensible, indescribable manner, began to envelop him. Can't escape. I want to scream. I try to scream, but I can't. In that brief moment, lasting only a fraction of a second, he was even denied the freedom to close his eyes or look away. He was forced to simply watch as the horrific monster devoured his flesh. He couldn't breathe. His mind was clouding. Death was approaching. No, in this surreal abyss, even death itself would die. At the very edge of his fading consciousness, a voice rang out, a grotesque voice, as if erupting simultaneously from hundreds and thousands of moors. A voice with the power to strike not at the eardrums, but directly at the brain. No, directly at the soul. The sacrifice for the feast, it is ready.